What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me again on my high performance podcast. My name is Phil. I'm a high performance coach based out of Sydney, and my goal is to help you become the highest performing man you can be in the simplest way possible. Anyway, today I wanted to share with you my 12 timeless training principles for life. Now, the reason I'm calling them timeless is because whether it's in the past, it's in the present, or it's in the future, I don't think these principles will change whatsoever. It has been true 50 years ago, it is true now, and it will be true 50 years down the track. And it will be this way until we die as a species. Another reason why I wanted to make it timeless is because many of you listening to this might have kids already or are preparing for children. These principles can be passed down to them as well. So let's get into it. What are the 12 timeless principles for life? Now, I'm going to list them all, and if you already know what these are, then you can skip the rest of this podcast. But if you don't, then I'm going to break down every single one and give you a brief description so that you can use it in your life right away. Number one, training often is more important than training hard. Number two, not every training session needs to be challenging, but it still needs to be done. Number three, variety is more important than specificity. Number four, finding something you like is more important than finding something that works best. Training in a group. Number five. Training in a group is the best long-term strategy because at first you're there for the training and then you're there for your friends. Number six. There's always a way to work around every niggle. Number seven. Listen to your body. It's better to relax when you're exhausted than to push yourself beyond. Number eight. Use a coach. Even if it's just a couple times a year, treat them like the dentist. Number nine, training should complement your life, not make it harder. Number 10, what you enjoy now might not be what you enjoy in the future, so make sure you enjoy now. Number 11, recover just as intentionally as you train. And number 12, make the goal the training, not the outcome of the training. Okay, so if you understand what all those 12 are already, then you can tune out and go about your life. But if you don't, or you just want to learn more about these principles, then keep watching or keep listening. Okay, number one, training hard is not more important than training often, okay? It's more important to train frequently than it is to train hard all the time. So a lot of people think that training should be hard all the time. If you don't get a sweat on or you're not struggling to breathe, then a lot of people doubt that they've done anything at all. Now, there is a time and there is a place for high intensity exercise, but for most people, doing moderate exercise frequently, okay, over time, produces better results because it gets these people moving more and they're less likely to fatigue mentally over time, okay? If you ran every single day for 60 minutes at a moderate intensity, okay, it doesn't even feel hard for you to finish the run. Versus if you ran as hard as you could 5 times a week for 30 minutes, although you spend less time running in the difficult session, mentally, you will probably feel more tired than if you just ran 6 times a week casually. Now let's break this down over, say, 6 months. In 6 months, maybe if you take a moderate approach, you will have ran 5-6 times a week over 24 weeks, for example. That's almost 120 something times per week altogether with moderate running speed that you're comfortable with. But from my experience as a coach, if I gave you 4 to 5 high intensity sprint type sessions 4 times a week, 5 times a week, you would only last at best 6 to 8 weeks before either mentally you can't do it no more or something breaks, okay? So it's more important to keep showing up and do moderate or even easy than it is to always try and go hard all the time. So in terms of building a habit and keeping yourself in that performance mindset, going frequently and working yourself mostly in the moderate range is the way to go. Number 2, not every session needs to be challenging, but it does need to be done. So building onto my first point, the reason why moderate exercise works so well is because you can still gain a training effect by doing things at 70 to 75% of your best effort, especially in cases like endurance sports. In strength sports, it might be a little bit different. But in endurance, you can get away with doing a lot of work at 70 to 75%. When you know that not every session is going to be mentally grueling, it makes it much easier for you to stick to a routine and to enjoy it. And you still get all the benefits of the physical training. For most of you guys listening and watching, the habit and showing up is far more important than how hard you can push yourself in any session. This is why it's important to give yourself those moderate sessions. Also, it means that you can always train, okay? You can always take down a session's intensity so that you can train. You don't always need to make it hard. And giving yourself that ability to modulate between high intensity, medium intensity, and low intensity will give you more options for days that you're feeling more tired than usual. Number 3, variety is more important than specificity. Most of you guys training, especially if you're not an athlete, are training to build a habit. The habit is the outcome, okay? The actual outcome of the training is not what you're looking for. So the best way to keep a habit is to actually just make it engaging. We want to make sure that you're not bored. And the best way to keep people engaged is to give them a lot of variety. If you're starting off your training journey or you're trying to maintain your training journey and you're finding it boring, it's incredibly hard to continue building that habit. So especially in the beginning, what you want to do is basically give someone or yourself a lot of variety. Okay, every 2 to 3 sessions, it's a little bit different. You're trying a little bit something new so that you're always interested in what's coming next. If you wanted to get a kid to play the piano, for example, even though they may be really enthusiastic at the start, if you just got them to play the same scale or the same chord or the same song for an hour, just in one session, 1 hour, they would get bored. And very quickly, their enthusiasm for the piano is going to go down. And that's why it's important, because even adults feel the same way. Unless you're training for a specific goal or task, then specificity isn't that important in your training. On a separate note, as a physio, having a variety of exercises and training regimes actually is very protective for a person against injury. So if you're a runner and you want to run 6-7 times a week, low intensity running plus high intensity running plus sometimes going for a cycle, these are all things that are going to protect you from having an overuse injury or just an injury in general. Okay, number 4, finding something you like is more important than finding what works best. This goes back to what your goal of training is. Like I said, most of you are trying to build a habit or maintain a certain lifestyle. You're not trying to be athletes. And if you are, then maybe this doesn't necessarily not apply to you. You don't want to force yourself to do something you're not interested in. A lot of people try to approach exercise from a what works best point of view because they don't want to be spending time exercising. By default, they think that exercising is just not fun. But I want to challenge you with this. You want the activity to be so enjoyable that the exercise effect is secondary to the activity alone. For example, I like doing Muay Thai not because it helps me get fit. The reason I like Muay Thai so much is because of the variations, the footwork, the strategy, the techniques. It's a game of physical chess and I love that game. In order to play the game well, being fit is a requirement. But it doesn't mean that I do Muay Thai to get fit. I do Muay Thai to do all these things, and fitness is a secondary byproduct of me having a love for Muay Thai. And that's why I can train 6-7 times a week, because it's not exercise to me. It's actually just fun. So whatever it is for you, I encourage you to find something that you enjoy, whether it be dance, skateboarding, gymnastics, running, cycling, it doesn't matter. You want to enjoy the activity so much and be able to do it so often that the exercise benefits come as a secondary effect. And then even if you eventually get into the what works best phase, it's going to come off the background of you finding something that you liked. Because for example, if you're a ballerina and you love dancing, you love ballet, you keep training, and you want to hit a certain jump or a spin, but your quads aren't strong enough. In order to get your quads stronger to land a high jump, you're going to need to start weight training. And so maybe you will find your love for weight training because it lets you do the jump in ballet. It's very different to if I just told you before you even did ballet, oh, you will need to do weight training because you can use it to jump higher. It wouldn't be relevant to you and you wouldn't like it. So that's why it's important that you find something you like first, followed by what works best. Number 5, training in a group is the best long-term strategy. Apart from all the points I mentioned above, the best way to build a consistent training routine and a lifestyle is just to do it with people that you like to hang out with. It's probably easier to go for a run when you're running with your best friend than running by yourself. It's seriously that simple, because in the beginning you might be there for the training, but in the end you turn up for your friends. And I believe this is why a lot of boutique and small community gyms are so successful nowadays, because everyone gets to know each other. And once that community is formed, it's incredibly hard to break. Number 6, there's a way to work around every niggle. If you decide to take up training as a lifestyle, then you'll be training as frequently as feasible for you. And this could be 6-7 times a week, almost every day. I train every day. I train every day, but I also go through different intensities. And because even if I go through different intensities, I go through periods where I might still have a niggle, like my shoulder might feel a bit sore or my knee might feel a bit sore. Sometimes my hip feels a bit sore. But I understand that this is normal because of the lifestyle that I've chosen. It's no different than a business owner who's chosen the entrepreneurial life and has to constantly put out fires because maybe an employee gets sick or maybe someone doesn't get paid on time. No different. But like a business, everything that happens to your body can be worked around. But you might be wondering, why would you do that? Why not just rest? There's nothing wrong with resting if you feel that way. However, if you're listening and you're like me and we've chosen high performance, it's the mindset that we choose to adopt. If my elbow hurts, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with my calves, my knees, my back, my glutes. Okay? If I can't push a barbell with my arm, that's fine. No problem. I can still squat the barbell. I can still do machine weights. I can still go for a run. I can still do so many things. Because in that moment, it's a mindset choice. It's not simply, my body is hurt. It's my elbow is hurt, but all my rest of the body is fine. And that's the choice I make. So there are always options out there. And I'm saying this as a physio, as a coach, but also before I became these things, I believed the same thing. It's whether we choose to continue with the mindset of performance. Performance means we always choose what is going to help us. And anytime we give ourselves that out, we get weaker in the mindset. So for me, I refuse. Even if I'm hurt, I refuse to not find a workaround because I know it's healthy for my mind. Number 7, listen to your body. It's better to relax when you're exhausted than to push through. Now, this might sound contradicting to my previous point, but it's not, because making good training progress is the product of activity and rest. If you're feeling incredibly exhausted, your best bet is to rest. However, even rest itself can be worked into your movement. For example, a relaxed walk in the morning sun will stimulate blood flow that will aid recovery, and this requires minimal effort. If you're somebody who has an injury or you're really tired, it doesn't mean that your scheduled session doesn't need to be done. It means when you go to training, you need to modify. You need to do something different. You need to speak to your coach, or you need to speak to yourself, basically, that you can do this. You're not limited completely. Do what you can. Number 8, use a coach. Whatever you're doing in your exercise routine, check in with a coach from time to time. The first benefit is that it makes sure you're on the right track and you're doing everything well. 2, it gives you an accountability boost. And 3, you might learn something new that will increase your engagement with the current training that you're doing. with the current training that you're doing. It's like seeing your dentist every 6 months. You go there to make sure everything's all right, you give it a bit of a clean, and then you see them again in 6 months. Except with coaches, you never know, but they won't try to scam you for a teeth x-ray. Number 9, training should complement your life, not make it harder. A lot of people try to train so much that it becomes an inconvenience in their life. If training becomes inconvenient, it's time to change something so that it isn't so hard for you to commit to it. This could mean reducing your workout times, reducing how many days you train, moving to a closer gym, or maybe even doing workouts at home. But again, it's like having an injury. There's a workaround for every situation. And what I'm trying to say to you here is you don't have to grind yourself into the ground and make your life so hard to fit in your training. The most important thing is that you maintain the habit that you have. So if training becomes a chore and it becomes difficult for you to want to train, that's a very important distinction, to want to train. That's the biggest habit killer for most people. So you have to preserve that. Don't make it a chore, make it accessible. If it means you're going to do 50 minutes a day for 6 days a week, do that. If it means you're going to do 30 minutes a day for 4 days a week, then do that. But it can't feel like it's making your life any harder. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to this on, or send it to a friend. Okay, it will mean the world to me. Back to the podcast. Number 10, what you enjoy now might not be what you enjoy later, so enjoy it now. A lot of people try to find the one thing that they'll enjoy and think that it'll last forever. But most people's careers don't last forever. And it's okay for them to change. It's the same thing with you and your training regime. Nothing is forever, man. Not even most marriages. So if you can find something that you enjoy it while you can. Spend time on it. Embrace the experience. But once it stops becoming an engaging thing for you, or you, in fact, don't even like it anymore, if it's purely for the sake of improving your fitness, don't be afraid to change. Find something else, because the longer you leave it where you don't enjoy what you're doing, the more likely you're going to drop off. So you want to get into something different. You want to get into something that's going to invigorate you before your love for what you're doing goes away. I remember I was not sick of weightlifting when I stopped, but I really had no enthusiasm for it when I stopped weightlifting. So my thought process was, it was such a chore to turn up to training. Not because I didn't like it, but just because I had no enthusiasm for it. So don't let it get to that stage before you try something different. Don't hold yourself to that old mindset of needing to do this certain activity. Number 11, recover just as intentionally as you train. Training and recovery is like yin and yang. Okay? You can't have one without the other. You can't optimize one without optimizing the other. If you train well, you'll also need to feed yourself well and to sleep well. If you don't allow yourself to recover, you won't be able to sustain a training habit forever. So if you have the intention to be high performing and to choose a high performing mindset and to train high performing, then it's incredibly important that you also learn recovery strategies for yourself. Now, recovery in itself is a huge industry. It's a huge thing to get after in terms of knowledge. So I won't go into it too much. But for the most part, if you eat well and you sleep well, you've already covered 80% of all your bases. And number 12, this is by far the most important principle I can give any of you. Most important. Make the goal the training, not the outcome of the training. If you set your intention to be showing up every week to as many sessions as is possible for your lifestyle, then you will never fail, because the goal is to show up. However, if you set your goal to, say, losing 6 kilos, or getting a 6-pack, or improving my running time, after you get there, you need to find another goal. Okay, let's just say you lose 6 kilos. After you finish that training journey, then what? It isn't always easy to find. So whenever you make the goal of training the outcome, you're more likely to go through cycles of what do I do next? But when you make your goal to turn up 4 sessions a week because that's what you planned and you're going to turn up every time, that's the goal, then there's no way you can fail, because even if you get 3 out of 4 times a week, the next week the goal is to get 4 times a week. So you always have this positively reinforcing pathway for yourself. And not to mention, whether your goal is to be in training or your goal is to get to, say, a stronger back squat, there's something that is in common, which is you still have to show up. If you don't show up to train, you won't improve your back squat. So all I'm saying is just focus on the thing that will get you everywhere. Just keep showing up. So those are my 12 timeless principles, guys. And honestly, if you just pick 3 or 4 of these and to stick to it, I promise you'll be able to sustain a high performing training habit until you die. And not only will you be able to do this for yourself, you will be able to help the next generation too. So to recap, the 12 timeless training principles are: number 1, training often is more important than training hard. Number 2, not every session needs to be challenging, but it needs to be done. Number 3, variety is more important than specificity. Number 4, finding something you like is more important than finding something that works best. Number 5, training in a group is the best long-term training strategy. At first, you're there for the training, then you're there for your friends. Number 6, there's a way to work around every niggle. Number 7, listen to your body. It's better to relax when you're exhausted than to push yourself beyond. Number 8, use a coach. Even if it's just a couple times a year, treat them like a GP or dentist checkup. Number 9, training should complement your life, not make it harder. Number 10, what you enjoy now might not be what you enjoy later, so enjoy what you enjoy now. Number 11, recover just as intentionally as you train. And number 12, make the goal the training, not the outcome of the training. Thanks again for listening, guys. I will see you on the next episode.